What is your full name?
My full name is Lillie Mae Howard Batson.
Was you named after anyone in your family or anything?
My aunt. I'm Aunt Lillie.
How would you describe yourself?
Very quiet person. I rather listen than to talk.
And is there anything you're really good at?
I like to read.
Do you have any nicknames that you go by?
Not now. I used to as a child.
What were they?
I was Nig.
Nig?
Nig.
How did you get that?
One of my brothers just did call me that, and all the rest of the family picked it up.
Okay. When and where were you born?
I was born in Pender County in a little area town, no, not a town, just a rural place at Hampstead, North Carolina.
Do you remember what hospital it was?
I was born at home. My mother had 10 children. Every one of them was born home.
How many brothers and sisters? Like 6 brothers, 4 sisters?
There were 5 of the girls and 5 of the boys. 5 red-headed and 5 black-headed.
Oh, that's interesting.
And all of them are dead now except me.
How was your lifestyle growing up?
My lifestyle, it was during the Depression, and we're in one now, but this one was worse. It was back in the 30s. And we didn't lack for anything. Daddy was a farmer. And he always saw that we had, as that song goes, shoes on our feet, food on our table, and that we always had what we needed.
So, what did your mom do for a living?
Having 10 children, she stayed home.
She stayed home.
And you washed on a washboard. You didn't have washing machines and things then. So she had a full-time job.
What was your favorite thing to do as you were a child?
My favorite thing to do, I guess I had a right many of them. As a child, you like to get out and play. We had a lot of people living around us, children, and we liked to get out and play until we had the chores to do. But as far as anything favorite, I don't remember anything.
Do you have a favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory? Yes, when Betty was born, she was just my baby sister. And I was 12 years old when she was born. And so I just enjoyed playing with her and helping raise her. And then Mama died at 48, and I had to take Betty at 6 years old and raise her. So was like a daughter almost.
Were you really close to your mom?
Very close. And the night that she died, I was sleeping with her. She had been having real bad headaches, and some of us girls would sleep with her, and it was my time to sleep with her. And she woke me up sometime during the night and said, "Little May, go get me 2 aspirins. My head is killing me." And when I got back to bed, she never took those aspirins. She was already dead. She had a cerebral hemorrhage at 48 years old. Very young. And Betty was just little.
What was popular whenever you were a kid?
What do you mean by being popular there?
Like, nowadays it's the cell phones and Facebook and the internet and basketball and football, stuff like that.
We had none of that. That was way back yonder, honey. All we had to do was to get out in the ball. We had a big old field out in front of us, and a gang of the neighborhood children. We would gang up and play for softball. That was one of our favorite things. And we did a lot of other things. There's a group down there one day, and we were decided to jump off the front porch. We would line up and jump off the front porch, and we were supposed to hit the porch with our hands. And when I started the jump one time, I'd already jumped several times, but when I jumped this time, I hit my arm on the porch and broke it. broke my arm. And my daddy was fishing, and my mama, we didn't have a car. All Daddy ever had was a horse and buggy. And so she had to get him out of there, and he carried me to Wilmington, hired somebody to take me to Wilmington and get my arm fixed. And I remember her sitting in there back of a wood stove, rubbing it, trying to get it in place. She should have spanked me, but she didn't. She loved me, so she rubbed my arm till she got it set, and then Daddy took me to town and got it bandaged up.
Do you remember what your favorite Christmas present was? Like any time?
Just thinking back, honey, I told you the other day that my first birthday and my first Christmas, I remember that I got a doll baby and a red sweater, and I reckon that doll baby, if I could say, was about the best Christmas present that I appreciated the most. The rest of them all along, I don't remember what I got. Clothes mostly.
What were the prices of things back then?
Well, during the Depression, it was they were just moderate prices.
Do you remember how much milk costs? Bread?
I don't know. We had a cow,
Okay.
so we didn't have
Okay.
to buy milk. I milked it 1 week, and my sister Hester was 2 years older than me. She milked it next week, and you know what we got paid? We got a nickel apiece for the week, and then we had to buy notebook paper for school with that.
How much does the notebook paper cost?
A nickel.
For a pack of paper?
For a pack of notebook paper, it was a nickel. Remember, we're talking
good.
back to 30s now.
Yeah. Where did you go to school?
Topsail High. It was all in one building. We didn't have a kindergarten, and the rest of it was all in one building. And we didn't have but 11 grades. We didn't have the 12th grade. So that's where I graduated. I started there and graduated there.
Did you play any sports? Like you already said you played softball with your friends, though.
Yeah, and we played softball at school.
You played for the team at school?
We didn't even have a team, honey, but we would get out as a school and play, divide the teams. We didn't have competition like y'all do. We would just, the school would do their own play, and the girls would play against the boys and things like that.
Did you enjoy school?
Yes, all but 1 grade.
What was that?
In the 7th grade, I had a man teacher, and I didn't like him, and he didn't. And I was quiet. I was bashful back there then, and I just didn't care a thing for him. And because I didn't like him, I almost failed my 7th grade, but I got promoted on condition. And I had good grades in high school and everywhere else, but I just did not like that man. He's the only man teacher to ever been to that school.
What was your best subject?
My best subject, I like reading, I would say. But I got along with all of them. Reading, writing, and arithmetic is about what we had. We didn't have everything. We didn't have choices like y'all have.
Did you have any hobbies inside or outside of school?
Not much, honey.
Where have you lived before you moved here?
We lived at Fayetteville.
How long did you live there?
I lived at Fayetteville. That's after my husband became a minister. We went to Fayetteville. We drove back and forth to Fayetteville for 2 years. The church was just small, a mission church, and we had to ride 100 miles up there and 100 miles back for 2 years. We did that. Then the church grew, and that was the first move that I had made away from home. That was the worst move I'd ever made, but we had built us a house, a pretty ranch-type home. And I hated to leave it, but the Lord, we felt like was calling us up there, so we moved up there, and the church grew. And we stayed there for about 5 years. And then from there, we moved to Four Oaks and was pastored the church there for 8 and something. Stayed there, and then up here, Ray Roberts and some of them, my husband would come up here for revivals, and the people liked him. They had him about 4 years for revival, and every year they would want him to take the church as a pastor. But we never did feel led to until about 5 years later. We wanted to stay down there. Felt like it was our business to stay down there. But then we did move up here in 1966, April of 1966. And he pastored the church 30 years, and he died. And we bought this house. This was a parsonage. And when in 1989 the church sold it to us, and so that's the reason I'm still here, is because this was my home, and I've been here about 45 years.
How did you meet your husband?
At his church. I was a Methodist. We went to my church one Sunday, and his after we met each other, but one Sunday morning, his first cousin was a good friend of mine, a girl, and they were having homecoming. And she asked me to go to homecoming with her. Well, I did, and we were out there in the yard, and somebody drove up in a pickup truck. There was some boys sitting back in the pickup. I said, Martha, that was his cousin. Who's that boy yonder? She says, that's my cousin Delma. And from that time, that day, I got to know. And that night, he came back out to my house, he and 2 more couples. And we went in Daddy's watermelon patch and stole watermelons. Daddy knew we were out there, and we bursted them and eat the heart out of them. He had a lot of them. And so that's how our courtship started.
How many years have you lived here in Caldwell County?
He pastored church 30 years, and this 20th of this month he'll be dead, 17 years. So that would make it about 47, wouldn't it?
Do you like it here? Would you change anything about it?
No, I enjoy it, honey. So far, so good. It's home.
Yeah.
What jobs have you had in the past?
When I finished high school, we had it was during World War II, and we had a Camp Davis up just above me. And after I graduated from high school, I went up there and went to work in a jewelry store, and I worked up there for a good while, well, really until my mom died. And then when after that, I stayed home then with Daddy and Betty for a while, and my husband and I were supposed to get married a year before we did. We were going to get married in 1942, April of the 10th. But when she died, we put it off for a whole year, and so we got married April the 10th of 1943.
Out of all your jobs, which one was your favorite?
The ministry, after we got started in the ministry.
Did you have any jobs that were difficult or some that you didn't like?
I worked at Belts in Wilmington for a good while, and then while we were still in Wilmington, and when we left around Wilmington, then we went to Four Oaks, and I worked at Belts there. I worked in the office at both places, and I worked there until we left there and moved up here. I didn't work for a while, and then the manager's job up at Oak Hill's lunchroom came open, and so I went to work out there and worked in the lunchroom from 1972 to 1980.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family? Did you have grandparents you were close to?
Honey, I had one grandmother, and on both sides. I never knew my granddaddies, either one of them. They had already died, but their grandparents was real sweet. Well, I'd go out there with the kids about every Saturday afternoon and stay with Granny.
Do you have any like family traditions you still do?
Yes, since our family has got smaller, you know. But I have Betty's children, Betty, my baby sister that I raised. Her kids live in Charlotte, and they're just like my grandchildren. We still get together for Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter, and then they've just given me my 90th birthday party, surprised me down there. And we get together a lot, and they come up here and I go down there. And then I got a niece in Virginia that is real close to me. We all get together.
Do you have like a favorite food?
Sweet potatoes. I love sweet potatoes.
You do? Is there like any stories that have been passed down to you that like your grandparents told you that are interesting?
I'm sure that there are, but I just can't remember one right now. Maybe I'll remember something directly.
Can you tell us like a little bit about your husband? What his jobs were and how long y'all were married and stuff?
Sure. Well, when we were dating, he was working down at a milk plant. Echo Dairy was the name of it. And when we got married, we moved down there on Carolina Beach Road. And he didn't do the milk and anything like that. He was over the pasteurizing it, and getting it clean. I guess that's what you would call it. And so that was his job then. But then it wasn't long. I think we lived in our home for 3 years that we built, and before he went into ministry. And when he went into ministry, he knew God was calling him. And so he had to study, some books and things that the denomination had. He had to do that. And you had about three areas you had to go. You had to get, ordained. And he was ordained in 1954 at one of the churches up there around where we're in Four Oaks. And that night, that afternoon, Hurricane Hazel, you all weren't even born, came through, and we couldn't even get back to the church. We went out to eat lunch, and when we did, that hurricane come through, and he couldn't be ordained. He and another man was going to be ordained on Friday. And so we went back on Saturday, and nobody much could get there, but he was ordained anyway in 1954.
So what do you remember your husband most by?
His love, kindness, just everything. He was precious.
How did any historical events affect your family?
Well, it was during World War II, part of it. Mm-hmm. And I had two brothers that went to war. And one of them was wounded. He had shrapnel. He was shot, and the shrapnel went under one of his sides here, under his heart, and they couldn't take it out. So he lived with that all his life. It grew flesh around it. If it had not, he would have died. But and then when he did die, he was just 51 years old. He was a truck driver, and he went to bed one Sunday afternoon and told his wife to wake him up at a certain time. And she went in there to wake him up, and he was dead. Had a heart attack at 51. And the other brother came out. He didn't get hurt or anything.
What is your most important value in life?
Right now, my most important value is, like it was through the whole ministry, trying to help people, love people, and let them see that my life is being lived for the Lord, and try to lead them to the Lord.
Is there any cultural activities that you have?
Not really.
Okay. So I see that you have like a dog collection. Do you know who started it?
Marjorie Braswell.
Did he like give it to you for your birthday or something?
They started giving me one every Christmas.
Do you like to have them?
Yes, since I've got used to them, but there've got to be a whole lot of them. And the minister that we had here before, the minister that we've got now, he knew I liked them and he knew I liked pink. So 2 of them that he gave me. I'll show them to you after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any like people that you have met that have changed your life, or like your perspective of it?
Well, I think, honey, my perspective on life was changed when we went into ministry. I think that's when it changed, because, you know, I didn't really know what. We were just going to work and live, but the ministry has meant a lot to both of us. We felt like we was doing what the Lord had us put on earth for.
Okay, well, tell me something that you want people to remember you by days from now, whenever they listen.
Well, I hope they'll say, well, that she was a good example in her life to all of us. That's what I want to be.